The rain battered the windows of our Seattle apartment, a relentless drumbeat that drowned out the world outside. I was 24, sprawled on the couch, half-heartedly scrolling through my phone when my brother, Ethan, burst through the door with his friend trailing behind. "Noah, meet Caleb," Ethan said, tossing his keys onto the counter. "He's crashing movie night." Caleb stood there, 26, with tousled blonde hair and a hesitant smile that didn't quite reach his hazel eyes. He was taller than Ethan, lean but strong, like he spent his weekends hiking the Cascades rather than hitting the gym. Something about the way he lingered in the doorway, hands stuffed in his jeans, made my chest tighten. I'd seen him around before, Ethan's college buddy, always quick with a laugh but guarded, like he was holding something back. Tonight, though, there was a flicker in his gaze, something raw and unspoken that made me sit up straighter. "Hope you're cool with horror," I said, trying to sound casual as I gestured to the TV. "Ethan's got terrible taste, so I'm picking." Caleb's smile widened, just enough to show a dimple, and he nodded, settling onto the couch a safe distance away. Ethan, oblivious as ever, was already rummaging through the fridge, muttering about needing snacks. The air felt charged, like the moment before a storm breaks, and I couldn't shake the feeling that tonight wasn't just about movies. We settled on the haunting of Hill House, the room dim except for the glow of the screen. Ethan sprawled across an armchair, already halfway through a bag of popcorn, while Caleb and I shared the couch. The space between us felt like a chasm, yet every time he shifted, brushing the edge of the blanket we shared, my pulse spiked. I wasn't out, not to Ethan, not to anyone. Growing up in a small town outside Tacoma, I'd learned to keep my feelings locked tight, buried under years of don't ask, don't tell vibes from my family. But Caleb's presence, his quiet intensity, was unraveling something inside me. Halfway through the episode, Ethan's phone buzzed. "Work emergency," he groaned, standing up. "Gotta run to the office." "You too good." I nodded, my throat dry, and Caleb gave a small wave. The door slammed shut, leaving just us, the rain, and the eerie hum of the TV. Silence stretched, heavy with possibility. Then Caleb turned to me, his voice low. "Noah, can I tell you something?" His words hung in the air, fragile but weighted, like they could shatter everything I'd built to keep myself safe. He leaned closer, his knee brushing mine, and my heart pounded so loud I was sure he could hear it. "I've been wanting to say this for a while," he continued, his eyes locked on mine, searching. I'm not who everyone thinks I am." The confession hit like a shockwave, and I knew in that moment that whatever he said next would change us both forever. The rain didn't let up, and neither did the tension in the room. Caleb's words lingered, a spark waiting to ignite. I wanted to ask what he meant, but my voice caught, trapped behind years of caution. Growing up, I'd always been the quiet one, the kid who observed, who kept his head down. Ethan was the loud, charming one, the guy who could talk his way into or out of anything. Me? I was the shadow blending into the background, especially when it came to who I was, what I felt. But Caleb's gaze held me, refusing to let me hide. "What do you mean?" I finally managed, my voice barely above a whisper. The TV flickered, casting shadows across his face, highlighting the sharp line of his jaw, the way his lips parted slightly as he hesitated. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit I'd noticed earlier, and let out a shaky breath. "I'm gay," he said, the words simple but heavy, like stones dropped into still water. "I've known for years, but I've never told anyone. Not Ethan, not my family. I thought I could keep it buried, you know? Just live the life everyone expects." His eyes dropped to his hands, fingers twisting the edge of the blanket. "But then I met you, Noah, and it's been messing with my head ever since." My breath hitched. I wasn't ready for this. Not for the truth in his voice. Not for the way it mirrored the secret I'd carried since I was 15, sneaking glances at guys in the locker room and hating myself for it. I wanted to say something, anything, but my mind was a storm of fear and hope, crashing together. Why me? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. Caleb looked up, his expression softening. Because you see people, Noah. You don't just look, you see. The way you listen, the way you notice things Ethan misses. I've been around you maybe 5 times, and every time, I feel like you get me without me saying a word. He paused, his voice dropping. And I can't stop thinking about you. The confession hung between us, raw and unguarded. My heart was racing, but so was my fear. Ethan could walk back in any minute. My parents, who still asked when I was bringing home a girlfriend, would never understand. And yet, Caleb's words were a lifeline, pulling me toward something I'd never dared to reach for. I shifted closer, our knees touching now, the warmth of his presence grounding me. Caleb, I started, my voice trembling. I've never told anyone either. I didn't think I ever would. His eyes widened, a flicker of hope breaking through the uncertainty. Before I could overthink it, I reached for his hand, my fingers brushing his. The contact was electric, a quiet promise in the chaos of the moment. For the first time, I felt seen too. But the door rattled, Ethan's voice calling out as he stomped back in, soaked from the rain. Caleb and I pulled apart, the moment shattering like glass. Ethan didn't notice, rambling about his boss and the broken server. But Caleb's eyes met mine, a silent vow that this wasn't over. The night had changed everything, and there was no going back. The days after that night were a blur of stolen glances and unspoken questions. Caleb started coming over more often, always with an excuse. Helping Ethan with a project, grabbing a beer, or just hanging out. But every time Ethan left the room, Caleb's eyes would find mine, and the air would thicken with everything we hadn't said. I was 24, still figuring out who I was, and Caleb, at 26, seemed just as lost, caught between who he'd been and who he wanted to be. One evening, a week later, Ethan invited us to a bar in Capitol Hill, Seattle's vibrant heart of queer culture. The neon signs glowed against the drizzle, and the streets buzzed with laughter and music. I hesitated at the door of the Cuff, a popular gay bar Ethan loved for its cheap drinks and good vibes. He didn't know about me, didn't know about Caleb, but his carefree grin as he waved us inside made my stomach twist. What if someone saw us? What if Ethan figured it out? Inside, the bar was alive. Drag queens owning the stage, couples swaying to the beat, friends shouting over the music. Caleb stayed close, his shoulder brushing mine as we squeezed through the crowd. Ethan was already at the bar, flirting with the bartender, leaving us in a corner booth. The dim lighting felt like a shield, giving us a moment to breathe. "Noah," Caleb said, leaning in so his voice carried over the noise. "You ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" His hazel eyes were intense, searching mine for something I wasn't sure I could give. I nodded, my throat tight. I'd spent years playing the part. Good son, quiet brother, the guy who never rocked the boat. But here, surrounded by people who lived their truth unapologetically, I felt like a fraud. "I want to be brave," I admitted, my voice barely audible. "Like them." I gestured to the crowd, to the couple laughing nearby, hands intertwined without fear. Caleb's gaze softened, and he reached for my hand under the table, his fingers warm and steady. "You already are," he said, squeezing gently. "You just don't see it yet." The moment was cut short when Ethan slid back into the booth, drinks in hand. "You two look serious," he teased, oblivious to the weight of the moment. Caleb pulled his hand away, but his foot nudged mine under the table, a secret tether between us. I wanted to hold on to that feeling, but doubt crept in. Could I really do this? Could I risk everything? My family, my safety, for a chance at something real? Later that night, as we walked back to the apartment, Caleb lagged behind Ethan, falling into step with me. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and reflective under the streetlights. I meant what I said, he murmured, his voice low so Ethan wouldn't hear. I'm not giving up on this. On us. My heart leapt, but fear followed close behind. I wanted to believe him, but the world felt too big, too heavy to let us be. The next morning, I found a note slipped under my door. A scrap of paper in Caleb's messy handwriting. Meet me at Pike Place tomorrow, 10 a.m. We need to talk. My pulse raced as I tucked it into my pocket, the words burning in my mind. Whatever came next, I knew it would test everything I thought I was capable of. Pike Place Market was chaos in the best way. Vendors shouting, tourists snapping photos, the smell of fresh coffee mixing with the salty tang of Puget Sound. I found Caleb near the fish stand, his blonde hair catching the morning light as he leaned against a railing, watching the crowd. At 26, he carried himself with a quiet confidence. But today, his hands fidgeted, betraying his nerves. I was 24, still wrestling with the weight of my own secrets, and seeing him there, waiting for me, made my heart ache with possibility and fear. You came, he said, his smile hesitant but warm. I nodded, unsure what to say. The note had kept me up all night, my mind spinning with what he wanted to talk about. We started walking, weaving through the market's narrow alleys, past stalls piled high with flowers and handmade jewelry. The noise gave us cover, a buffer against the world. Noah, Caleb began, stopping near a quiet corner overlooking the water. I can't keep pretending. Not with you. His voice was steady, but his eyes were raw, vulnerable. I've spent years hiding, telling myself it's easier to stay quiet. But every time I'm with you, it's like I can breathe for the first time. He stepped closer, his breath visible in the chilly air. I think I'm falling for you. The words hit like a tidal wave, washing away my defenses. I wanted to say it back, to tell him I felt the same, but fear clamped down hard. Caleb, I faltered, glancing around, half expecting Ethan or someone else to appear. What if this ruins everything? Ethan, my family, they won't get it. Caleb's face softened, but there was a fire in his eyes. I know it's scary. I'm scared too. But I'd rather risk it than spend another day wondering what could have been. He reached for my hand, his touch grounding me. We don't have to figure it all out now. Just don't push me away. I didn't pull back this time. His hand in mine felt like a promise, fragile but real. We stood there, the market buzzing around us, and for a moment it was just us. Two guys, 24 and 26, daring to hope. But the moment shattered when my phone buzzed. Ethan, where you at? Need you back home. My stomach dropped. Caleb saw the screen and squeezed my hand. We'll figure it out, he said, but doubt gnawed at me. Back at the apartment, Ethan was pacing, his face tight with worry. Mom called, he said, barely looking at me. Dad's in the hospital. Heart thing. We gotta go. The news hit like a punch, and Caleb's presence beside me suddenly felt like a secret I couldn't carry. As we packed to drive to Tacoma, Caleb's eyes met mine, a silent question hanging between us. Could I be honest with my family? Could I be honest with myself? The hospital in Tacoma smelled of antiseptic and fear, the kind that clings to you. My dad, 58, lay in a bed with tubes snaking from his arm, his face pale but stubborn as ever. Mom, 56, sat beside him, her hands clasped tight, praying under her breath. Ethan was on the phone outside, arranging time off work, while I stood frozen, Caleb at my side. At 24, I'd never seen my family so fragile, and at 26, Caleb seemed to sense it, his presence steady but quiet. "Noah," Dad rasped, his voice weak but sharp. "You okay, kid?" I nodded, unable to speak. The heart scare wasn't fatal, the doctors said, but it shook us all. Mom's eyes flicked to Caleb, curious but distracted. "Who's this?" she asked, and I fumbled, calling him Ethan's friend. The lie bitter on my tongue. Caleb's jaw tightened, but he didn't correct me. Later, in the hospital cafeteria, Caleb and I sat across from each other, coffee cooling between us. "You didn't have to lie," he said softly, his hazel eyes searching mine. "I get it, but it hurt." Guilt twisted in my chest. I wanted to be brave, like he'd said at the bar, but the weight of my family's expectations was crushing. "I'm not ready," I admitted, my voice breaking. "Not with Dad like this." Caleb nodded, but there was a distance in his eyes now, a crack in the connection we'd built. "I can't keep waiting, Noah," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "I want us, but I need you to want it too." He stood, leaving me with my thoughts and a cold cup of coffee. The rest of the day was a blur of hospital visits and forced small talk, but Caleb's words echoed, challenging me to choose. That night, back in Seattle, I couldn't sleep. Ethan was passed out on the couch, exhausted, but I slipped out to the balcony, staring at the city lights. I thought of Caleb, of the way his hand felt in mine, of the life I could have if I stopped running. I pulled out my phone and texted him, "Can we talk? Tomorrow, my place." His reply was instant. "I'll be there." Caleb showed up at 10 a.m., his blonde hair damp from the Seattle drizzle, his hazel eyes cautious but hopeful. I was 24, standing at a crossroads, and he was 26, waiting for me to decide. The apartment was quiet. Ethan was at work, giving us space. I led Caleb to the couch, the same one where this all began, and took a deep breath. "I'm scared," I said, the words spilling out, "of losing my family, of messing this up. But I'm more scared of losing you." His face softened, and he reached for my hand, his touch steadying me. "I'm gay, Caleb, and I'm falling for you too." The confession felt like shedding a weight I'd carried for years, leaving me raw but free. Caleb's smile was like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Then we'll figure it out together," he said, pulling me close. His lips brushed mine, tentative at first, then certain. A kiss that held all the promises we'd been too afraid to make. It was messy, imperfect, and everything I'd never let myself want. Weeks later, I told Ethan. We were at a diner, pancakes untouched between us. "I'm gay," I said, my voice steady despite the fear. "And I'm with Caleb." Ethan blinked, then laughed, a mix of surprise and relief. "Took you long enough," he said, grinning. "Caleb's a good guy. You're lucky. It wasn't perfect. Mom and Dad would need time, but it was a start." Caleb and I built something real step by step. We faced whispers and sideways glances, but we also found allies, friends, and a community that embraced us. The journal on my bookshelf, the one with "Love Changes Everything" scrawled on the cover, became a reminder. Love wasn't just a feeling. It was a choice, a fight, a life. And it was worth every moment.